and welcome back to the Smoke Break. I'm your host, your old pal Zaid, here with Zoe Schwartz.
Hello, we're
and
back.
Logan Loughmiller.
Hey,
We've been gone for a little bit, but we're fine. We're bringing him back. We couldn't stay away.
welcome back.
Yeah, well, thank you for being our first guest back.
I'm happy to be.
Great
Yeah.
fresh start.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. The topic that you wanted to talk about with us was grief. Tell me a little bit why that was something you wanted to talk about.
Oh, well,
Well, I mean, not wanted
We made
to.
you talk about
I was
it.
going to say we should you guys asked me if I wanted to.
Why did I want you to talk about
Yeah,
it?
I'm let's be a little
Just 'cause
more.
I don't want to be like, I know what I want to talk about.
He didn't
I
really.
want to talk about death.
We're like,
That's
For the first episode back, absolutely.
yes, diving in deep.
So,
why did we want you to talk about grief?
Well, honestly, I figured it was because I'd had close friends pass away in the past 2 years. I don't know. I feel like that's what would the expected thing would be, but like I feel like that most of my perspectives on grief stemmed from man, we are going in deep fast.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like
That's how we do it here.
Yeah. My sister passed away when I was 2015.
Okay.
But and it was a gnarly way to go.
Yeah, I'm
It
sorry.
was- yeah. But yeah, and
So-
dealing with that
Yeah,
I dealt with it so poorly
yeah.
that shit spun out up in control, and I was like, I need to not deal with grief like this ever
Yeah.
again.
Yeah,
Like that
yeah.
was
Yeah.
A hard
Yeah.
lesson.
Well, I mean, especially like I don't think that like grief really hits you until it's somebody that is that close to you, you know.
or it's different when it's someone that close to you. for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, I mean,
It
like I
is,
lost
yeah.
grandparents, but like
Yeah,
they
that's
kind
it.
of left
Right.
within their time.
Yeah,
You know, so it's like somebody that you're expecting to go.
it's
you know.
slow. It happens, and
Yeah.
then eventually,
Yeah.
the circumstances make a huge difference on the
Oh,
impact
for sure.
and the way
Yeah.
that you deal with it. I'm sure, right? Yeah.
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 How old were you when your sister passed?
2015. So
20
damn,
something.
I'm bad with math. Oh, you're very sweet.
I'm like, how old are you?
That would be 35. Yeah.
Okay.
34, 35. Yeah.
Yeah. And you said that you like spun out. Like, what did that look like?
Literally, I feel like that's the analogy I've made before. Is I feel like it was like a fishtailing car. Like you immediately know something's wrong, and you're like, this feels bad, and just gets wider and wider and wider.
Yeah. Wow, that's a really good way of putting it.
Yeah, that's a good visual.
Is kind of like you feel like you're beginning to be out of control, but like even when trying to control it, it's just
Right.
causing it to. Yeah.
You're overcorrecting.
Right. And if you don't spin it or
Yeah.
lean into the curve, then you will
Totally.
tumble off of the road, which
Yeah.
is what happened.
It was like when
Yeah.
we were talking about my first car and how I used to hit things all the time
Oh yeah.
because I was bad at overcorrecting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that overcorrecting kind of makes sense because like you are feeling all that pain. You're like, what's the opposite of that pain? Oh, for me, it's numbing. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like in reference to like stages of grief. Are you familiar with those?
I was at a time. I feel like I've made up my own now
Yeah.
ways
Yeah.
of coping with each part that like came at me. But
Yeah.
I would be curious to actually hear what they are because
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah, we were talking
Yeah.
about, I mean, it's kind of like a more, I don't know, like formulaic way of thinking about
Right.
grief. And I think also there's like a misconception that they're supposed to go in order. And I don't think everybody goes through. It's basically one of those theories that's like, this is kind of what it's like, but also not all the time. And also it's different for everybody. So it's just kind of
Yes.
like a template to sort of understand.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's like denial, shock, anger. Wait, let me look. I have
Denial, shock, anger, dropping your phone.
Yeah.
Well, the shock one, I feel like that is universal. I don't
Yeah.
feel like we were talking about that a little bit. Like the someone compared it once to like when you're watching a movie and a bomb goes off and there's that squeak
Yeah.
and everything's just disorienting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You are just like kind of in a tornado. I'm like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because I think death is like, it's like you can experience it from the perspective of losing someone. And obviously, like we said, like how close that person is to you,
Yeah.
what the circumstances of the death were, how sudden it was, like all the things can make a big difference on like how we process it, you know? So I think like also the way, so I think where you go on the stages of grief and like how much denial is involved probably But I think, but just like, because we don't know what death feels like, we only know what it feels like. We don't know what it is. I guess if you're religious, you think for sure you know what it is. Yeah. I think there's a sense of like, what does this mean, kind of, right? Like, even like not even the loss also, but just even death itself being this like abstract concept.
Yeah.
It's like our bodies and our brain don't really know how to process something that we don't actually know what it is.
Right.
Yeah. So denial. What was the other one? Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. There's a bunch of different
stages along the way.
And even like different ideas about the stages. And those are the kind of basic ones.
Denial's a pretty common one too. That's the like we feel like I feel like at any moment he could walk right through that door.
Definitely.
Or like that. Like it doesn't. You haven't really connected with that. They're not going to be. There's so many circumstances you haven't even hit yet.
Yeah.
Where like I don't go camping very often. Sometimes when I go camping, I'm like, oh, right, fucking he would be it. Like,
totally.
Definitely. I think that's a really good one too, is like when you do things that you used to do together, you kind of like have those associations of like, oh yeah, this was something that we used to do together.
Right.
Like for me, it was listening
and years can pass sometimes before you like you'll be like, oh fuck, I forgot.
Yeah, it's like a new stage of grief every time some mile marker comes up where they should have been there or you expected them to be there. Like it's a whole different. Yeah.
Well, for me, it was like listening to Atmosphere, because that was like there's this girl that like we were amazing friends, and we were supposed to go see an Atmosphere concert together, and we would always drive around, smoke weed, listen to Atmosphere. So it's like whenever I hear that, like it's like, oh yeah, you should be here, or like I want to tell you about everything that's happened so far, or I remember rapping for you and you being like, I think you can do it. It's like all those little milestones and stuff that you kind of want to share with people.
Yeah,
definitely. So like, as far as like coping with grief, do you feel like there's, I guess, things that you did before that you don't do now, or things that you didn't do then and do now?
Definitely. I feel like I went above and beyond with the denial part in that I would like try to prove to myself that I was fine with it. Like in well, I guess this is going to expose what she took her own life. And so I like volunteered for a suicide hotline.
Wow.
I went through like, well, I made it to the very last phase. I was like an 8-week thing, and I made it to the last phase, like right before we were going to start taking calls. And that same week, my niece attempted.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, nope, I'm going back.
Yeah.
But I mean, the
whole thing that it was kind endeavor, but like it was a dumb thing to do. I was in no place to do that.
Yeah.
And I took some role that was I was acting a lot at the time, and I took this this was one of the 3 times that I played Satan. But right.
I love when stories start off like that.
But that was the last big role I've had. But it was I was Satan trying to convince someone to take their own life.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. That must have been really difficult.
Well, part of acting is you're wanting to like, you're like, oh, I've got a lot that I can bring to this. And it's going to be something that's personal and going to be something that's like fucked up. And sometimes you'll come out on the other side like, oh, I kind of worked through some shit.
Yeah.
But didn't happen with that one. No, that one just made it worse. I only watched that once, and I was like, I can't watch this again.
I had something happen where
good.
I worked on a crisis line for a while. It was like a domestic violence crisis line. And obviously you get all sorts of, because some people will just call any crisis line they can call because we don't have enough resources for people,
Right.
So I would get all sorts of phone calls, not just people dealing with DV or whatever. But I had somebody call and talk about, or maybe it was either way. It was in like one of my social work positions, and I totally had because I had a really close friend kill themselves on like my high school graduation night. And that was obviously really impactful and like shaped kind of that area, that time in my life. And I had a reaction, like I didn't know I thought I was like, had processed it more, but having someone come to me directly, and obviously like I work in mental health now, so I've overcome that, but it was like, oh shit, I'm not totally ready for this part of this job. It really triggered me, and I was like, wow, okay, so that was
well, I mean, like I think that it's really cool that you did try to help in a way, like help in a situation where you probably felt like helpless, out of control, hopeless, like you didn't have any impact. So I think it's cool that you tried that, but even just recognizing that like you're not in a place to help somebody through something that you haven't worked through yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Because like, like I'm working in mental health now. I work with a lot of people who struggle with being non-consensus reality based, which is just a fancy word of saying not in the reality, not sharing our same reality or an understanding of the same reality. And it's like, that was something that, like, at first when I started working with them, I was like, oh, I have space for this. But then there was just this moment where, like, I saw everybody was mad at them and upset with them, and like had no understanding of how they were struggling.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, it just took me back into this, like, oh, maybe I'm not ready to help this person in that way because this is very real for me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that's still at the forefront of your mind.
Yeah, definitely. So, like,
there's a $5 word you pulled out back there.
Yeah, non-consensus reality based.
But I think it's interesting how, like, your denial, like, your conception of that stage for you was like almost like overcompensating.
Yes,
like I'm
100%.
so healed that I'm like able to work with people that
I'll show you how healed I am.
Yeah, exactly.
It
not
was
just like I'm not dealing with this. It's like, no, I've dealt with it and I have mastered it, and now I can help other people. Yeah. That's like it seems like
definitely that.
It was very like good intention though. Like obviously it's better than just being like I'm not even dealing with this.
Yeah. I don't know.
Maybe
well,
not better,
I feel like a lot of that stuff is just like, and this is now how I address when I feel like my friends that passed away, I feel like I dealt with that like a champ. Honestly, I felt very good about how all that went down. But like I feel like now I kind of have it was just tail spinning, like I said before.
Yeah.
And now when shit like that happens, I kind of I don't know, different mental health things talk about it. It's a little woo-woo too, but the observer or the witness, the thing when you step outside of yourself, and you're kind of just observing yourself.
It's kind of like parking the car and just being like, you know what? I was fishtailing there for a second. Let's just stop the car, take a sip. Let's smoke a cigarette and just look at the car for a second.
Well, the car's still moving. It's not even pulled over.
Just ghost riding the whip. Okay.
Well, I feel like it's like you're still in the tornado. Like emotions are going to be like just but you're not in the eye of the tornado. You're watching the tornado from a bunker.
You're like a storm chaser.
Do
you feel like that was something that like you developed the skill to do through like other aspects of working on your mental health before that, or specifically through the experience of like having a really hard time processing that bigger?
Oh no, it was
before
specifically with my sister. That was
that
shit kept spiraling, and we'll get into the next topic about sobriety next. But that was, I feel like things were coming to a head where I was worried about my own survival, and that was where priorities of dealing with death became like, I have to figure out how to do this better.
Well, and I think just even like coming to the realization that like this is something you are going to have to deal with for forever, or someone is going to have to deal with in reference to you. You know, like,
no, I was afraid of what would happen the next time something like that happened.
Well, I think, that's definitely, at least for me, a tendency of like, if I react to something a certain way one time, my fear is that I'm going to react that same way, you know, like, but not even like factoring in that like I've built more skills, or that like I have more support, or that, you know, all the different things that may factor into me handling it better, you know?
Yeah.
That makes me think about how like I've had a couple experiences with clients where like, and I learned this like in my internship, I had a client that was like really afraid of like something. There was like her biggest fear around her anxiety she was dealing with, and then it was like something really similar to that happened, and then it was almost like she was able to acknowledge her growth like so much more because she actually. So it's like sometimes, I mean, not like it's never a good thing that something tragic happens, but as far as you like seeing the progress that you've made, like being able to handle it that way, it's almost like having something like the thing you're fearing happen sometimes can really show you. Not that it's ever positive.
But you don't know what problems you have until you have something that like brings them popping out.
Or like the growth you've made like versus the first time you went through that, and the more recent times seeing like, wow, I've actually really like learned how to cope in a lot more productive, like healthy ways.
Yeah. How is the acceptance kind of like factored in for you? Do you feel like that was like a place on the?
I don't know. I feel like that's when I just like that you can't have a clock on it, so I just like kind of let that do it'll happen when it happens. And let it just kind of dissipate in.
Well,
I don't know. I don't really have a. I leave that one up to the universe, man. Just it's gonna do its thing.
So would you say you're like working on it, but you don't feel like it's like? I think the key is that there's never like a end point with grief. Like we're gonna grieve for as long as we are alive. But there's a place where the grief isn't like as upsetting to or it's not as upsetting to think about the person.
Oh, right. There's never going to be a moment where, well, all done with that
exactly.
one.
So what does acceptance really
forever.
mean? It's probably different for everybody, right? Like,
I was going to say one thing that like I feel like the biggest thing I took away from the first thing when my sister passed was the feeling of like I felt like I couldn't feel like if I felt happy, I felt guilty.
Yeah.
Like if I felt good, if I was having like a good day within like a month of when it happened, then I was like, it felt like I didn't care about her. I felt like I was like not honoring what had happened, or that like I felt shitty for feeling happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's hard.
It's a persistent thought and feeling when shit like that's happening.
Yeah.
Totally.
And like and they wouldn't want that for you.
Exactly.
No.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like if
Yeah.
I imagine that they were struggling themselves with finding happiness. So it's like you finding happiness would be more honoring their memory than maybe staying inside of something like that.
Yeah. That's confusing. Yeah. Cause it's like you feel bad, but then also like wouldn't make them feel better. So then you're like, no, I shouldn't feel. Yeah. It's like,
There's nothing that you shouldn't feel.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
like, that's,
Right. Yeah.
And that including happy shit.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's-
yeah. No, for sure. And
You know.
yeah. And you're right. Like being sad forever is not a better solution than
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is confusing. Yeah.
Definitely. All right. Well, we're going to take a real quick commercial break and we'll be right back with the smoke break. And we are back with the smoke break. I'm your host, your old pal Zaid, here with Zoe Schwartz
Hello.
and Logan Loughmiller.
Hey.
Thank you so much for joining us. Zoe?
Yeah.
I stole your greeting.
As soon as you did it, it threw me off. I was like, what do I do?
Yeah, he's all
I was like pointing at myself. Go ahead.
Yeah, we wanted to. So the next topic we kind of wanted to cover is sobriety, but we also talked about how your experience with. So like we want to know about
Why'd you pick me for sobriety? Okay.
Yeah, like how did your experiences with grief sort of lead into the process of deciding to get sober, and what did that look like for you?
That was a big coping mechanism. Obviously, I had addiction problems before that. It was, and honestly, it was like this was like 5 years or more after that I even like sobriety was even on the table.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And probably another 3 years after that till it actually like happened in completeness. So
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
yeah,
Well, I mean, I think like, taking losses like that kind of makes you reanalyze, just like, am I dealing with this the healthiest way or just the only way I know how to right now?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of self-medicating going down.
Yeah. Well, that's
Yeah.
interesting too, though, that like you started thinking like this is probably something I need to address, but it took 3 years before it actually solidified as like something you were
Yeah.
successful at or like confirmed that you were doing it.
Well, also
sure.
a lot of people. I was not like sober on everything. That's
Yeah.
like
Sure.
I quit pills, I quit weed, I quit booze, and those
Mhm.
there's probably 2 years in between each of those.
Yeah.
Oh, you did it like you like progressively got sober.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Booze was the last to go, and that was.
But I mean, for me, I feel like that's almost easier than just quitting everything all of a sudden because it's
Yeah.
like, for me, like using is and was like a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like to be like, I'm using this coping mechanism to deal with grief. And now this coping mechanism's gone, but the grief is still there. Now what do I do?
right.
Yeah. Like it gave you time to like develop new coping mechanisms slowly over time instead of just like, boom, you need 10 more, like,
Yeah.
new
Yeah.
ones. Yeah. Yeah. What was it like?
Well, mostly it was each one was a necessity. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
pills was like I could die. Like
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
there were moments where like that. Yep,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's a big big issue there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Let's try to avoid that.
Weed was like I get, and this is Portland, like weed is the devil. It's not a popular opinion here, but for me it was I just cannot connect with people
Yeah.
when I'm
Yeah.
stoned, and I realize a lot of other people are like I watch comedians who are like I'm about to go on stage. Hold on, I'm like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know.
I watch that every time. Just
like I'm like, and they crush.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
different brains, different
Yeah.
mentality,
Different
like,
strains. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Hey.
Different
More
strains for different brains.
Yeah. I had a blast if I was like smoking weed at home alone,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but it would linger for like a full 24 hours. I
Oh,
would be
really?
foggy and like
Yeah.
not able to connect with people. And
That's interesting because, like, me, like, I like to smoke weed, but, like, I don't like to smoke weed with people I'm not familiar with.
Yeah.
So it's like, if I'm, like, at home smoking weed, I'm like, this is fine,
Yeah.
But, like, it definitely, I think, like, understanding that, like, each of these things has a certain place for certain people at certain
Right.
times.
Mhm.
Like you just, like even having compassion for yourself, like, hey, like at the time, like, maybe pills may have killed me, but like on certain days they kept me alive.
I mean, that could have killed me, you mean?
Yeah, that's Did I say killed me?
You said maybe pills maybe killed me, and I'm like, I don't think they did.
So maybe I honestly I would say maybe the benzos, because I was actually prescribed those for a little while, but like the other ones I'm like, nah, I think they were just killing me. Like,
Yeah.
I think that was
Really?
much more-
Yeah.
I don't know how much good those were ever doing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess like, because like I work in harm reduction. So like, something that like my boss had kind of made a point of is just like, like self-harm, whether it's like, if like physically harming yourself or even just like if you considered getting high or doing drugs as self-harm, it's just like that's keeping you alive, which is keeping you from like, maybe taking your own life. And like the idea that like,
no, that's valid.
Dead people can't make better decisions sometimes, like I'd actually talked to a comic
doing that instead of something.
Mhm.
Exactly. I talked to a comic that was talking about like wanting to have taken their own life and coming very, 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 very close to it. But like they had kind of said like, I kind of wish I would have just drank. Where it's like, because to make that big of a decision, over like, oh, I just have to like keep these numbers that like I got, I've been sober for this long and I don't want to mess that up. And it's like, you would mess up your streak of living life before you would mess up your streak of being sober. Like that's just, it was just very interesting to me.
Actually, when I was training for the suicide hotline, that was the end of the call. Is like, what are you going to do now? Like, what is your
future plans?
Right. How are you going to get through the rest of this
Yeah,
night?
totally.
It was never like nothing long term was on that call. It was always like, what's going to happen now?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, because it's stressful to think about far ahead in the future when you're considering that you don't want to be here, right? Like it's probably more realistic to be like, how do we stay alive today?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think even like the way that you talked about getting sober feels like harm reduction or like, some form of that, because you slowly got sober in a way that allowed you to like scaffold like developing new coping tools.
It sounds like I organized. No, it was just like, well, this one is gonna. Each one was a necessity. The booze was like I got gastritis and I was literally hurting my body because I was drinking so much that like my stomach lining was like getting inflamed and like if I kept drinking it would irritate it more and then
But I mean, go ahead.
I even waited that one out till it healed and then went right back to it. That wasn't the last part. Yeah.
Well, I mean, but I think that's a good thing for some people to think about too. It's like, I think some people think like, I think I need to get sober. Or I need to address my relationship with substances. And then they're like, if I can't just do it, then I failed and there's no point in trying. And I think your story shows that like, it doesn't have to be like a straight line.
No.
It can be a process of reducing the amount of substances that you're using to a point where you don't need them anymore.
What is the thing that's most toxic to you in that moment?
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Definitely.
Or you can like it's California sober is super popular.
Like,
well, I mean that's the way that I do it.
Is that weed and mushrooms? You're allowed to do weed and mushrooms if you're California sober. I think like Oregon sober too, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I like for me it's like I realized the role that alcohol was playing in my life and I realized the things that it wasn't allowing me to have.
Right.
So like I made a decision that I didn't want to have that as a part of my life. But when I looked at other substances, I was like, hey, is this causing the same amount of problems, or challenges that, the alcohol is? And because it wasn't, I was like, okay, this is something I can have in my life to a healthy extent.
Right.
And it's something that like my boss had said just kind of like in reference to sobriety is that like, I think there's always this tendency to be like, I have a streak instead of like at the end of the year being like, I had 200 days sober. Like counting how much you had collectively instead of, a streak
in a row. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, you could miss one day and still have 364 days of being sober, instead of being like, I relapsed this year. What does it matter?
You're right. That's so, you're right. That's such an all or nothing way of thinking of it.
It's a lot of achievement.
200 days, you killed it.
Yeah. Well, what about AA? You kind of mentioned some experiences with AA that might be worth talking about.
Well, and I want to be very clear. I will condense 5 minutes into like one sentence. Like AA is great for a lot of people, and I fully support people involved. I've seen it do work wonders for people.
Yes,
it did not work for me. Like I feel like it, and I feel like it's not always great for everybody. I feel like
I've heard some criticisms.
Yeah. But I don't know. I feel like it's for me. It was just like it just kept reinforcing the addiction, like it just kept reminding you that you have a problem, 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 instead of like redirecting myself towards something else, like life,
the other things about
living
you.
life was my like, I don't know.
Well, I guess for me, like with AA, the problem I always had is like I guess I never really wanted to be kicked out of another family, because because it's like it's just very sad.
Me and Logan are both all.
But I mean, like I feel like when we're using like there's a tendency. Yeah, give me that hug. Give me that hug.
It's like fucking up the audio.
I want to hug him too.
But like
I won't kick you out of my family.
But there's like this when you're using and when you're using and you are engaging in like risky behavior and you're becoming, to what some people might view as like toxic, you lose a lot of people.
Yeah.
And then you realize you have a problem and then you join a new family and they're like, we understand that you messed up and you can be a part of our family. And you're like, what if I mess up one more time?
You're all better follow these rules.
Then you're out of our family then again.
Yeah.
So now you're alone again. And I'm like, I don't want to build a support network that's going to leave me in the event that like I were to relapse or I were to use again.
It's as I was talking about this with somebody I'm dating right now, and I feel like before I quit drinking, I thought like I mostly would just hang out with other people that would like also drink their ass off, and I would like only date people that drank like crazy because I would be like, I don't want to feel weird when I'm wasted and you're not.
Yeah.
I just felt like, oh man, when I quit, who am I going to hang out?
Yeah.
There are so many people that are like, oh, you're so cool. Like they like want to hang out with you more. I had no idea that it was going to be, you can enjoy the daytime.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, like you thought it was going to be isolating, but it actually opened doors for you to like more
quite
connections.
the opposite. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah,
no, that's really cool.
And I can hang out with people getting wasted.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something like that I have more space for. I think like initially, like because I had like part of me missed it. Like when I would see somebody who was drunk, I'm just like, God, like this is annoying, or I wish that was me, or and it was mostly like jealousy. I would say it wasn't like the drunk people are annoying. It was I'm annoyed I can't also be drunk.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I get that some people are not necessarily at that phase, especially being around other people that are getting wasted is like
well,
too hard. Or some people can never get that's the thing that I can't be around, or I will spiral.
Yeah. I definitely like work with some people who are like, no, I can't even like go to a bar to hang out. And I'm just like, I totally understand. Like for me, like I had to have a good reason why, like if you have a powerful, and this is for me, if you have like a powerful why, that it's like you know why you're doing it today, you know why you're doing it at all, but like the problem that I've always ran into is like getting sober for other people, because like a lot of people are like, I'm going to shame you into stop doing this. And it's like, okay, what happens if you're no longer in my life and that shame isn't there? Well, then why am I quitting? Oh, I don't need to? Okay, cool.
Never for anybody else.
Yeah, you can't do anything really for other people in that way. That's sustainable.
Not permanently.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Sustainably. No, It makes me think about like I had this one friend who was like a really fun drunk, and like she definitely probably drank more than is like that would be considered like not healthy or whatever. But we talked about it one time and I was like, God, it sucks that you're so fun at this. And she's like, I was like, because I know you want to cut back. And I was like, but you're not annoying at all when you drink. Some people are so annoying that it's like they're just eventually they're gonna get
that can make it worse for you, because like it's one thing like all your friends are like, oh God, you're such a piece of shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I was a fun drunk too. I was like, but it was like I'm not hurting anyone.
But you probably hurting yourself. Yeah. No, but that makes it harder. But it also probably makes the change more like solidified in the sense that like you're not doing it for other people because you didn't necessarily have to.
Yeah.
You had to really come to like how it was affecting you. So I think it could go both ways probably, right? Like having the pressure could help, but also the pressure coming off kind of leaves it to you and your own relationship with the substance in a way that's probably helped more sustainable for like longevity of sobriety.
Well, I didn't have I quit booze during the pandemic, so there wasn't a whole lot of other people involved. It was like, that was kind of,
That probably helped.
Oh, well, I mean, I was like everyone else, I was drinking a shit ton, and then like that physical thing started to come into play again, where it was like affecting my health, and
Yeah.
And it was just me. There was no other people to like be involved with anyways.
I feel like we talked to somebody else about this, about when we were talking about drug use, like during the pandemic and them getting sober. And they were kind of like same thing. Like at first I just went for it. Yeah. And then I was like, all right, I think this is enough. I'm bored and I'm by myself and I'm really just seeing how bad this is. Yeah. So I think, I think a lot of people probably experience that, like a ramp up and then like kind of like a check yourself because of the isolation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, dope. We're going to take a real quick commercial break. We'll be right back with a smoke break. And we are back with a smoke break. Welcome back, finger guns.
I'm gonna do it all around.
Yeah, all around. Pew, pew, pew. This is the Spider-Man meme.
We don't support gun violence.
But we do support pun violence. I am your host, your old pal Zane, here with
Fuck
Zoe
off.
Schwartz. Logan Loughmiller.
Loughmiller is actually.
Don't you fucking
Don't
dare.
you dare. Yeah, this got real hostile during the
Zo
last.
Jokes is my stage name.
Someone got someone got my name wrong at the only big show I've done in Seattle, and they introduced me as Logan Loughmiller.
Ouch. I didn't know that was for a show. That's painful.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
it is
luckily,
spelled that way. Kind
we're
of,
bringing
right?
the jokes.
Loug.
Oh, okay.
We're bringing back the joke
Do it.
break. You all right? You folks ready?
Yeah.
This is from Let's Get Real, Bro. We used to do their cards a lot more, and then they had a weird dick one, and then we didn't for a while. So we're back. Getting real. The dick card's out.
I pulled all the weird dick ones out.
Yeah.
First one is like,
Zoe pulled her dick out. Okay, so what emotion do you
All your
feel?
dicks out.
What emotion do you feel
Metaphorical.
it's the hardest to connect to? What emotion do you feel is the hardest to connect to?
these zany cards.
Yeah, these. Am I
Hey,
right?
I didn't even do that.
You did. You
I
did.
didn't. In here.
In
I
your
did.
heart. In your
I did.
What
heart.
emotion is hardest for me to connect to? I don't know.
Mine's anger. Mine's
Yeah?
anger. I have a really hard
Mm.
time. And it's hard because I have empathy for anger because I struggle with anger, but it's also the hardest one to have empathy for because it's like I understand it from the perspective of dealing with it, but like when other people are being angry, they get mean, and when they get mean, they get hurtful, and when they get hurtful, I lose compassion.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Logan? What emotion do you feel is hardest to connect with?
I don't know if it qualifies confrontation. Is that an emotion?
It's usually. I
feel
mean,
like that's,
Well, it could be anger.
it's kind of similar. It's like
Yeah.
Tension. Yeah, like
Yeah.
I'm
anger.
shitty at confrontations. Just like if
Me
someone
too.
like comes at me out of nowhere with aggravation, I'm just gonna go. Like that's my default. Is just like, but sometimes you can't. Sometimes you are not in a place where you can.
yeah, very true.
And I've actually gotten a lot better at that. But there's still some moments that keep me up at night.
Yeah, where you wish you would have had done more, wish they had done less.
Yeah, where I felt like I let myself get walked on a little bit.
Yeah,
That doesn't sit right.
I can relate to that.
yeah, I could definitely relate with that.
Yeah.
What about you, Zoe?
Well, I was thinking and I was having a really hard time. And then I realized I don't have any emotions that I have a hard time connecting to. In fact, I wish I could chill out on all the emotions. I'm very
Serenity
emotional.
is,
Yeah.
is emotional.
Yeah, I'm just like a very emotional person. And so
Yeah.
I don't think I can think. Yeah, I feel
What
like.
about in other people?
I would say probably like anger or like. Yeah, probably anger. Yeah, or like
Yeah.
any sort of like I don't know if it's an emotion, but like anytime anybody tries to power trip me like in any way,
Mm,
I
yeah.
get real triggered by that. Like I have a very strong sense of like injustice, and I will get
yeah.
angry and like say shit I wish I didn't say and stuff. So yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
If anything, I think my problem is how do I like the idea of the window of tolerance. Like how do I feel my feelings without responding to them so quickly? I think that's my issue when it comes. I have a hard time overly connecting with my emotions. I would
Yeah,
say. So,
yeah,
I get that with competitive people. I'm not very competitive.
Me neither,
Yeah.
yeah.
But if someone else is like, "Ooh, I fucking got you," then
Yeah.
I'm like, "Wait, no, you didn't."
Yeah,
Like,
totally.
yeah.
I'm the same way.
then I become competitive
Yeah.
with, like, my reaction. But I
Yeah.
don't I never instigate it, but I react to it.
I feel the same way about being argumentative, which most people would probably disagree and be like, "You started all the time, Zoe." But I feel like I'm
So
not
you would argue with them?
super argumentative unless somebody tries to be right all the time, and then I'm like, I don't even know if I'm right, but I just am not cool with you thinking you're right all the time. So I'll get
Yeah.
really argumentative, and I don't like that part of myself. I
Mm.
wish I could just be a
Yeah.
little more humble sometimes. Maybe is humble an emotion? Confidence,
Yeah.
that's one's hard for me.
I think the emotion that would be hardest for me to connect with myself would
Mhm.
be like pride.
yeah. Oh,
Mm.
that's
I have a
good
really
one.
hard time being proud of something.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like
Can I say me too?
yeah,
Yeah.
you absolutely can. You absolutely can. But that one, it's hard to be like, it's hard for me to like be like, oh yeah, I deserve this. Like
Yeah.
deserve, like the word deserve. Somebody's like, you
Yeah.
deserve to be happy. And I was like, can we not use like a different word? Like maybe you should also have, or, like just
Yeah.
something that's more reluctant and not like deserve
Yeah.
or you did really well. You should be proud of yourself. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm somebody who I guess like sees too many things wrong with me. So therefore I'm like, you shouldn't be proud because of this, this, and this. And it's just like, or you should be proud because you conquered this, this, and this, like I have a really hard time reframing that
I
one.
feel like
Yeah.
affirmations can help with that stuff like that. That's one of my
Yeah.
morning woo-woo things.
Yeah.
But it can
Yeah.
hearing yourself saying it and like it just slowly becomes more of a
Yeah.
reality.
Yeah.
It's like rewiring your brain. Yeah.
Well, I mean, when I think about all the things that I've said to myself 100 times that weren't true or weren't helpful, it's like, what would be the effect of doing the opposite? You
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a good one. What about you? What's the one you have as hardest time connecting with for yourself?
I said confrontations. That was probably my.
That's like with other people. So like an emotion you have with yourself.
Well,
do you feel bad about
find
feeling
one,
bad?
Logan.
Do you feel sad about feeling sad?
Huh.
yeah,
I don't know. I don't have an easy react. I don't have a go-to like this one.
Yeah, that one was
Yeah,
hard for me.
Confrontations is the one I feel like I struggle with. I feel like that's it feels very personal.
Mhm.
It is
Yeah.
dealing with other people, but it's my insecurity around
Mhm.
moments like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Something I thought of when you were talking, Zane, is like, do you ever feel like when you get you get accolades or acknowledgement for something? I do this thing where then I'm so uncomfortable with it that I will be like, well, yeah, but it was like also like this and I'll find reasons why like I'm not totally I don't get to take all the credit.
Right.
Like I'll be like, well, yeah, but like this made it easier, or like, and like that was something that happened to me a lot when I was
downplaying your own accomplishments.
Yeah, in grad school, because I was having hardcore like imposter syndrome, and I was just doing all these things I was like had wanted to do forever, but I was afraid to do, and then I was being good at them, but then also struggling, and then just having this really hard time like acknowledging the parts that I was really good at, and I'd constantly be like, yeah, well, it might have been like this, and then people kept pointing it out to me, and I was like, okay, like there's a lot. It was like social work, so I got a lot of feedback. Like you don't believe in yourself. Like your work outmatches your confidence, like consistently.
Wow.
And I was like, that sucks.
That's a really good way of putting it.
Yeah.
It's like your workout matches your confidence.
Yeah, like my skill outmatches my confidence, like time and time again. Yeah, and I'm just like, well, that sucks.
Comedy can reinforce that in some ways too.
Absolutely.
Because like someone going like, I am crushing it.
Yeah.
It's not funny. It's not like
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
like
it's fun for us to be self-deprecating. That's like our thing, right?
not
Like,
even like it's I don't know. It's like if you don't want to punch down. So like if you're
So if I punch myself in the face, I had to punch up to do that.
yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Are you gonna do another one?
Let's do another one.
Yep.
What do I need a nudge towards in life? Ugh.
You know,
I don't know. You guys tell me. What do I need a nudge towards in life?
I think, are you supposed to answer it for yourself, or are we supposed to answer it for each other?
Do for each other. It sounds like it could spin out of control.
What do you need?
Well, we were talking about one a little bit earlier, like being if you're in a new relationship where you're not of being like okay with being vulnerable.
Yeah.
We're like my partner right now has been very like forthcoming about like how she feels about me, and I'm like you are enjoyable a lot of the time as well.
We're together. I feel nice.
Yes. Yeah. Good feelings happen.
Yeah.
When you're here.
Yeah. I feel not bad when you come over.
Yeah.
Closest I will come to saying I feel good is I feel not bad.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you feel like being vulnerable is something you need a nudge towards?
Vulnerable, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like that just stems from like past relationships where I was like, all right, I love you, and then like something bad happened.
Yeah.
And like I don't know, hesitance to like just be the,
like almost just like a
which isn't invalid.
No,
It's not.
no, not at all. Yeah, it's protection. Like we protect ourselves by doing that, but I think we overcorrect and then we hold ourselves back from believing that something. Yeah, and that's I was just having a conversation with somebody about that. Like, like how do you hold space for like the future relationships to be different in the future than what like your conception of relationships maybe might be negative, and then when you get into one, even though it is positive, you're like, oh no, I'm supposed to feel bad about this, or I could lose this,
or is the same thing gonna happen?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like my big thing is like, I get scared about getting attached to people because it just takes me a really long time to get over it when I'm like ready to be done with the relationship. I just have a hard time like uncoupling myself from people. So I get scared getting attached because I'm just like, this is gonna end one day and then it's gonna be sad, and I'm like,
it's gonna be hard to disconnect.
Yeah.
So what do you think you need a nudge towards?
I think in that respect, just being more open to the fact, like believing that, like, my past
in love.
Do you believe? Yeah, that my past is not indicative of my future. I think that's a really hard one for me, especially when it comes to relationships, but in general too.
Yeah.
What about you, Zane?
What do I need a nudge towards? Let's see. I would say confidence. Confidence is something that, like, no matter how good or bad I do, I always feel the same about myself. And it's like, even when I'm just fucking bumming everybody out. But I mean, like, I would say, like, recently, like, I've been getting compliments, and people have been like, I thought you did really well. And it's like, being able to accept that is, it kind of goes back to the last question where it's like, I have a hard time being proud of what I create. So it's like, and I think like confidence kind of ties into that of like, hey, you have a really cool fucking podcast. You tell some really cool jokes. You make some really cool music. Like these are cool
tell
things.
Some really terrible puns.
Tell some really bad puns also. I mean, they're it's all grouped in there.
Bad good is the same.
Yeah, with puns definitely. But I mean, I think that like just being able to like recognize growth and, you know, like just be happy of like how far I've made it or like how different things look than they did a year ago or 2 years ago. You know, like it's being able to recognize that growth. I think like nudging myself in the direction of acknowledging and accepting everything that I've created, whether it's good or bad, it would be, you know, it's a good place to start.
Oh, that reminds me of someone said this to me once and it just rocked my brain of when you're in a dark place and you're feeling hopeless is think of the last time you felt this way and think of all the good moments that happened in between that time and the time you're in now. Or even go back far if you don't feel. But like you're missing, if you're ending things now, you're missing out on all of those good things like that happened in between those two times. And the time before you thought it was never gonna end. It's gonna feel this way forever.
Yeah.
But it didn't.
Yeah.
It's like over identifying with the negative and under acknowledging the positive can make you feel like the negative happens more often when really like maybe there's more little positive things happening that you're just not giving. Yeah, we do. We give more weight to the bad stuff sometimes.
Yeah.
Especially when it validates like an old story about us or like
or you feel like it's keeping you safe. You know?
Totally. That's another thing.
I feel like feeling safe is like, oh, if I recognize this before it happens, then I don't have to get hurt. It's like, well, but you don't know that it's going to happen and you're hurting yourself trying to guess that it might.
Yeah.
That reminds me of like why I became funny. I think when I was a kid, I was like, if I just make fun of myself first, then nobody else will have anything to say because I'm better at it than they are.
Falling on your sword, you're like,
yeah.
I was like, I know I'm ridiculous. Let's all laugh about it together so you guys can't do it behind my back.
honestly. All right, let's do one more card.
Let's do it.
And we'll get out of here. If you were dating yourself, what parts would really suck?
I'm glad this one came up. I was like, this is a hard one.
Jesus Christ.
Is he still fucking talking about comedy? Fucking no. Just
is he really a 31-year-old dude who still reads comic books and finds hope in them?
Yeah.
Yes.
They're hopeful stories.
I'm wearing a Ninja Turtles t-shirt. Yes, I am. What parts would really suck? My anger. That would not be super fun. My insecurities. All of my exes have told me are a huge problem. Pretty much those.
Yeah, I think insecurity for me would definitely be one. And just emotional reactivity. I think I can be real.
It's a really social way to put way to put that. My emotional reactivity.
Yeah, well,
I explode.
I lose my shit.
What about you, Logan?
I feel like this is some old school Mormon shit. I grew up Mormon. If you're listening, but like,
yep, that's baggage.
Yeah.
Okay, wait.
Yes. Well, no, but it's like the. I feel like, and I'm much better about this now. And I'm currently dating someone that was also former Mormon, so we both have like
a foreman,
some shared trauma.
Yes, a foreman. Jack Mormon is the slang, but no, this. Sorry, I didn't leave breath for that. I'm sorry. You deserve.
No, it's stupid.
That's 2 applause breaks during a podcast.
Right.
I'm overly celebrating Zane's dumb jokes over here. I'm all Logan. More credit for Zane.
No, that's why I say bad, good puns. Like I've been the lone clapper at an open mic first. Like that made me so happy.
So they're also a Mormon.
Oh yes. Well, I feel like there's kind of like a. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
And things are like falling apart.
Yeah.
And you have this like, I don't know. And that's a very prominent thing in that culture of like, things are going awful, but you are like, nope.
Don't show your weaknesses.
Like, yeah.
Or don't show yourself doubt.
Don't acknowledge that things are bad.
Or stay like an overemphasis on staying positive or
toxic positivity.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know. It can be there's like it's a weird gray area because I'm like, well, all right, I'll stop being positive. What's the solution to the like?
I think you're toxically positive, but that's okay. All right. Well, on that note, that has been the smoke break. It's good to be back. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on. This was fun.
Absolutely.
We're back.
Absolutely.
Yay.
We're back. Yay. We'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much. Later, players.
Bye.